Hey everybody out there on Steam here at Ludonaricon. We are checking out a game called The Church in the Darkness. My name's Richard. I'm the director of the game. I very vaingloriously put my name on the title screen. I apologize. But here today with me is one and only Brock Wilbur. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Brock?
Hi, I'm Brock Wilbur. I'm a comedian that eventually evolved into a butterfly and then into a journalist. Do a lot of games journalism and now very, very serious journalism. And one of my big things was busting a cult a few years ago, which is how the two of us became friends. And since then, I've played this game on maybe every platform that it's released on. It's it's
Nice.
it's you and uh, Red. Hmm, what is the one on Mars? Gorilla, Red Faction,
Oh,
Red Faction,
right.
Gorilla. These are the
Yeah.
two games that I have on every platform they're available on.
Well, that's a good club to be in. I appreciate that. It's an honor. So and you're something of a. I'm going to say one thing to you for our viewers. If you could scoot over a little bit to there, so
Ah,
you're blocking that light source, so it won't be glaring in people's eyes.
wonderful.
They will appreciate that. So yes, and you're something of a. Would you describe yourself as a cult expert?
I would describe myself as cult adjacent. Let's go with
Cult
that.
adjacent. So I knew that from when you did a piece, a write up on the game before we came out. I got that sense. You can go search out that interview. If you search for Richard Rouse and Brock Wilbur, it'll probably pop up for you. I think it was in Paste, maybe.
Yes,
It was a great piece if
it's
you
the
want
only
to
time
go
I've ever
read that.
reviewed somebody's game where you had to send me your Steam login for me to access it.
That was yeah, that was like a year before it came out or something.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, and I'm still as an indie. I used to work in AAA at like Ubisoft and Midway and things like that, and I still brought some of those security thoughts with me. As AAA world's very secure compared to indie games, but so I didn't want the game to get out until it was done. But you were trusted, and I look forward to hearing what you thought about it, and it was a good discussion. So.
Yeah.
Um, so for people who don't know about the game is the Church of the Darkness, set inside a religious cult in the 1970s, which you are going to infiltrate. We're going to be playing it today, and you can tell me about how the game went when you played it, and I'm going to be steering today, so I'm going to show the audience some secrets and stuff here. Um,
Do you
so,
have control as we're starting here over what situation is going to spawn here?
well, all I have is so in the game we set up this at the beginning, which basically says this is covered over by my talking head partially in the video feed. Sorry, everybody, but basically, the Church of the Darkness has a story where the motives, beliefs, and actions of the preachers change every time you play, based on the way you play and the choices you make. Many different endings are possible. So what Brock is alluding to is each time you play, you get different versions of the cult leaders, where they're either more apocalyptic or less apocalyptic, and some other things can change. And then you get to make these choices that change stuff. And on this build, I have played this before, so we kind of have a choice of which version of the creatures we want to get, but we don't know exactly which ones we're getting either. Um,
Gotcha.
I'll just go back here real quick. We do have, as I alluded to, a bunch of endings you can achieve. So these are the ones that I've gotten so far on this build. Um, Obviously, I've gotten all of them in my development, but on this machine, I've just gotten these. And so you can say, okay, well, I've already finished a version where both of the cult leaders seem to be like this, or one was like this and one was like that, and then you
Right.
can say, here's what I want on my next playthrough. So that's when we get back to this menu here. I'm going to skip ahead. You see we're selecting, okay, do I want just purely random versions? Do I want the same ones I was just playing, which means the last time I
Right.
played the game? Or do I want one I haven't reached an ending with yet? So that doesn't give you a lot of context. Did you have a request for which version of the creatures you were hoping to play with?
No, no, spin that dial. I want to see
All
where we
right.
go.
All right. I'm going to go with creatures I haven't reached an ending with in this build. So we got a little character select screen for people who like that. I'm gonna be more tanned than my usual self here. And we've got some difficulty levels. The big differences here for people is the easier levels you get like sight cones, so you can see where the guys are that you're trying to sneak past. Harder levels, you have to kind of figure that out as you're going. And yesterday with the other stream we're doing here at Ludonaricon, I played originally, I think, on medium and then went up to spy on one. So I'm going to do medium again because that's sort of
All right.
the default. I don't know. Did you find it? How did you find the difficulty when you played?
I found it very difficult my first couple of playthroughs in, and then once I got the feel for it, I was like, all right, I see where we're
Right.
going.
Yeah, that's it does have a bit of a learning curve at the beginning, and the controls are a little non-standard, so you have to kind of get over that. But once you get into it, and figure things out, hopefully it becomes easier. And if you find it too easy, just bump that difficulty level up. But so I've unlocked all the gear as you replay the game. I've found all these things in previous playthroughs, so I can decide what to take with me. Do you have any requests? What do you think I
No,
should
no,
take?
you go for it.
All right. The medical kit is always a good idea.
Right.
If you want to go non-lethal, which the game does recognize how you're playing the game, lethal or non-lethal, tranq darts are good. And I'm going to do the alarm clock because that's fun. I think not a lot of people use the alarm clock, so I like to show that off when I can. So we start off, the game gets set up with just the backstory of the group. As someone who's studied cults, this might have sounded familiar to you, Brock, a bit. There was something about the 1970s I felt it was like the golden era for cults. Do you think that's a fair description?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So it was like, and why do you think that was? What do you think about the 70s?
Well, anytime that we enter a time of pure counterculturalism where you can see a visible divide between like age ranges and political beliefs, it's pretty easy to pick somebody off and be like, we're called the Moonies and we're not like either of these other two guys. And like, maybe we'd love you.
Right. It's basically whenever you have a time, people are looking for something else.
When his dad left, he could have
So you start off the game with these notes that kind of give you some of the setup for why you're there. We try to just get you right into the gameplay.
So Alex went out and found his guidance somewhere else.
Or anything, but
this
is one of several notes. I'm gonna pause that one. You start with a few in here that give you some of the backstory, including the postcard from Alex, who's your nephew who you're looking for, other notes from his mom that say different things about why you're going down to South America, why she's hiring you.
I haven't heard from him in 6 months. I just know something is wrong, and I don't trust the horrible preachers he's fallen in with.
You can keep listening to those while you play if you so choose.
With your background, I know you can handle it.
So let's see. The other thing about the game, I guess we should tell everyone, is that it's designed to be replayable for narrative, but it's also replayable just for gameplay. So where you start the map each time is different. We've got a big sort of open world that we can look at. Here's our map. We don't know where anything is yet because we just started, but we've got a general layout of Freedom Town, which is where we're going. And
this is what I'm excited for to see with you, because there is enough randomness here that, like, how good are you at this game most of the time?
Yes, variable, I would say. I'm not. I'm not a pro gamer. That's the interesting thing. I find it. You might think that game developers are the best players, but that's not the case. I have found. Like, there's some good ones, but mostly the players are the best players, and you're kind of like trying to challenge them beyond what even the development team could possibly do. So we'll see how I do, eh? And when we start out, we've got, it helps us a little bit. It tells us that there are some friendlies in town that we can go talk to. Most of the people are going to be terrified of us and run away or set off the alarm or shoot at us, depending. But we also do know there are some people who will help us out if we can find them. So we know Charles is somewhere in that area, and we can try to go search for him. So as you go through, you'll find this is one of the Whitechapel buildings, which is one of their prayer centers. Those can have some extra good loot and stuff in them, but they're also slightly harder to get into. The other thing to know is the red, for people who play, the red guards are the more advanced guards and will give you more trouble than the blue-hatted guys who are a little easier. And we can hear in the background a lot of the narrative in the game comes across the PA. Oop, that guy just spotted me. Now, I wasn't using my sight cone, so I blew that a little bit. I think, oh, no, I'm not seeing. Sorry,
this was all I thought the stream was going to be.
So now if I use this button, I can see, oh, that's how far you can see. The idea is I'm partly disguised, but not totally disguised. So it makes sense that he could see me farther than that, but I'm disguised well enough that he won't give me a second thought. So do you remember how many of the different endings you've gotten when you've
I'm going to
played?
say in the realm of like 4 or 5.
Oh, that's pretty
I felt
good.
like it was enough to really get everything you were going for, but I didn't
Yeah.
know just how many they were. So,
Yeah, no, it's that is the number I recommend actually, 4 to 5. You'll have gotten it. I'm not even kidding. Like at conventions, like this is Laracon online convention. So if I was talking to someone at the booth, I'd tell them, 4 to 5 playthroughs. You'll have seen a lot of what's in there. Though there are like on the
right,
menu, we saw there's 19 different endings on there. That's not really intended for everyone to think, oh, I'll go get all of them. Well, you certainly can.
right.
Players who want to can try to figure that out. There are people online if you get the game, which is on sale during Voodoo Nericon, by the way, 50% off. If you pick up the game and want to see what the different endings mean, you can go look on the internet. There are people who have written charts of like what this ending means and how to get this one and that one. So you can get. We do some achievement stuff for getting like 10 endings. I think if you get 10 endings, is the gets you the.
But no achievement to push anyone to 15.
No, because I didn't want people to think, oh, I should get all the endings, right? So the thing about achievement points I find is it kind of tells players what they're supposed to do. So if you have an achievement for like wantonly murdering everyone or something, players will think, oh, I guess that's the thing I'm supposed to do. Which is in this game, we deliberately don't have any achievements like that because we don't want. It's not. Whoa, oh dear. So this is a bad situation. Oh dear, this is bad. So you see my strategy here is often to run away, and it's a good strategy, I think. Okay, so I've just ditched those guys, just barely. Because basically, you've got a gun. I decided to start with the tranquilizer darts, but now that's just a civilian. She doesn't have a hat on, so we know she's just a normal person. She won't shoot at me. If she sees me for too long, she'll freak out and run away, but she's okay there. But if I had picked the pistol or something,
when you read people's like write-ups of the multiple endings,
yeah.
How do you feel about that level of criticism? Because that seems to dictate like, I think I know what the author meant.
Well, I think people are always trying to figure out, well, what is this? I mean, not everybody. Some people obviously just play it and enjoy it in the moment, and that's fine. People who are like trying to look for a deeper meaning, I like that actually, because I like that. And it's interesting always to read what they think I meant when I didn't mean it necessarily. I kind of like the fact that they're adding their own interpretation to it, right? That they're trying to figure out what this means, and in the process of doing that, coming up with their own meaning, which is what I really want people to do anyway. I just want them to, think about, what all of this could mean.
What is truly, I suppose, a game about interpretation of all events. So
yeah, this is one of my favorite things in the game are these little birds that fly around and startle you with their shadows sometimes. So you'll see the subtitles are still going. At this spot, I'm just out of earshot of the PA system, but if I was closer to it, there would have been voice going along with that. And we don't have the volume cranked up all the way, so we couldn't hear it. But
now, how much dialogue did you write just for the announcements?
I mean, that was the bulk of it, actually.
Right.
And the bulk of the narrative was really intended to be you're in the world feeling it like people feel it in the moment, right? It's not about the big scenes at the end or it's not as much about the big scenes at the end or, the conversations you get into. I mean, it's partly about that, but I really wanted you to feel like I'm really in this group in a sense. Is this guy going to see me? No. Oh,
I like that you're not totally sure of the mechanics at that spot either.
No, it's a big open world. It's not like I have played every scenario, every nook and everything. I'm sort of glad there aren't more places you can get stuck than there are. There's like one or two that are still in there, I feel like. We recently did a patch where we had a bug for a while where once you find your nephew Alex, he will follow you out of the game if you choose to say, hey, you got to leave with me, and he wants to. Sometimes Alex doesn't want to leave, sometimes he does. If he wants to leave and he's following you, there are cases where he would wedge you into a corner and you couldn't get out without killing him.
Wonderful.
And that was a bummer. Or knocking him out. You didn't actually kill him.
You know
knock
what?
him out.
That's its own story.
That's right.
It should be its own ending.
He's so freaked out, you can no longer leave. But we fixed that. He no longer wedges you into corners in this latest build. There's that guy again. I saw him before. So here's the scene. This is a little bit of freaky stuff. There's somebody there praying. Oh, that person saw me again. Oh, dear. And it's an interesting thing, too. I think this game, has so much... Oh, this is bad. Okay, if I tranquilize him. Oh. So you're really not intended to get into shootouts with guys on both sides of you. That's a bad idea. Fortunately, the cult is a little bit forgiving. We can watch this moment here.
Did you kill anyone? Did you hide their bodies? I almost thought we were safe. My wife. I need to go talk to my wife. Your coming here has really set her off, and I just need to stop her.
So that, for the people watching the stream at home, the little character art in the lower right there was covered over by your head, Brock, but I can tell you
Wonderful.
That was Isaac Walker, who is one of the leaders of the group, and so this is your first meeting with him in this playthrough. And you can get a lot of clues about their personality from sort of listening to what they say when they capture you, because they will say different things each time. I was really worried.
It was fascinating to me the first
time
I played through and got shot to death, and I was like, oh, no, that's chapter 2. All right, now let's see where this goes.
Yeah. And have you ever gotten executed when you get captured?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because he let me go, but that's only because I hadn't killed anybody yet. And if you've killed people and left their bodies behind, he's not so nice when you're in the cage, and that your game may end there. But as it is, I have a chance to break out if I can pick the right time to do it, which is usually when this guy is not looking. As I remember at PAX, all the PAX shows we showed this at, people would... There we go. I did the non-lethal takedown on him, so it's a little slower. It means he will wake up again. But if I search him and take his gun, when he wakes up, we'll just give him a minute to wake up, because this is always fun. He will not be able to shoot me, because he no longer has a gun. But I remember people at PAX would always die. They would get captured, they would break out and get shot as they were breaking out. I'm like, the secret is to do it when no one's looking. So he freaked out and ran off because he has no weapon. Now, when they captured me, they took away my gear, but usually over here, if I search, I can get all my stuff back. Oh, there it is. Thank you. So you get most of your equipment back. I think I lost some alarm clocks in that transaction, but you get most of it back. So when you were playing, did this live up to your thoughts of what a cult compound should feel like?
Yeah, this felt very 70s. And also, like, as it comes up, like, there are variations on how evil and how practical this is. And it really fits with the time and place where, yeah, sure, this is not worse than America.
You can also, another way you get a lot of story in here is if you search things like this desk. I can get this document, which I can check out. And this gives you a little backstory of the game. The thing that surprised me, or maybe disappointed me a little bit, and I don't blame players for it, but is that people didn't search out the documents as much as I hoped they would, I guess. It was actually a pretty late change in development. It used to be we didn't tell you where the friendly characters were on the map, so you spent more of your time searching for documents, because you can also find Alex by searching for documents. You'll eventually find him that says where he is in the camp. But we put in the thing to help you find the friendly characters, because people really like the friendly characters, and as a result, they spent less time looking at the documents. And we've got like 100 plus documents you can find, and they're not all in the same playthrough. There's like different ones in different playthroughs. But as you get deep into it, there's a lot of stuff.
Well, so many times I would wind up in a house and I was like, I know that somebody's about to come here with me. Maybe it's not the best use of my time to search.
Yes, right. It's not, yeah, it's one of those, like, it doesn't actually, like this time, I was thinking I could go in there, but instead I just brought trouble in. The other thing I can do is I can always throw a rock. That'll get them to go over there. Now I can search the desk. Ah, I found the buildings map. So this upgrades my map. Now I can see where stuff is a little better. Remember, we're looking for Charles, who's somewhere over there. Though we may find other friendly characters as we're looking for him. We can also search this thing here.
Yeah.
You know how much you all mean to us.
I guess at some point we should talk about how, in our modern era of COVID-19, we're forced to have conventions like this online. Like this event was already going to be online, but now
Right.
people can come to it aren't going to be able to go to a PAX or something. But I did find it interesting that the outbreak in South Korea was based on a cult group over there. You've read about that, right?
Yeah.
I guess they were. It was a secretive group that a lot of people in Korea belonged to and would meet. Oh, that guy's not. Oh, now I picked up another one. Oh, another thing I can do that I have.
I'm just so happy to see that you play the game the same way I do. I thought you'd have this greater confidence about it. And like, nope. Sometimes you spin like the ship in asteroids and you hope.
That's right. So I don't know. Do you think our recent virus outbreak is going to lead to an uptick in cult activity?
Well, when we did our first interview, there's a line that I always come back to, where we were discussing like, why is there an uptick currently in America, and that was a couple of years ago. And the thing that we settled on was that social media doesn't make anyone feel better. We all feel more disconnected, and everyone feels sadder. And the idea of a group of people that are like, hey, come live with us, see people every day who actively love you and would do things for you and tell you that you're a good person. I don't judge that version of what this is. And so like, yeah, this feels right for that. And our current situation feels like it will breed that, because even after, there will be people that are ready to come out and are shocked that no one else wants to come join them. And I'm sure that some people are like, well, you know what? If we're all people that believe in going out, let's just all live together, because everyone else must be dumb.
Right. We're going to go all get infected together, and we'll be strong, and only the strong will survive. But that's what cults are all about sometimes. Okay, so I just lured this guy into the chicken coop. I'm gonna put the trank on here. Oh. Is he going to come in? No. Oh, he put his hands up, but I wasted a trank dart anyway. That's another thing. I don't know if you ever did the move where you can get guys to surrender.
A couple of times, not as often as I wanted.
It's a tricky move to pull off, but like I think I could do. Oh no! I just saw me through the door. Blew it.
Our lecture series on the worsening situation.
Wow! I've walked into the hornet's nest here.
This week, focusing on the U.S. government's
that guy.
role in propping up the totalitarian military regime in El Salvador.
Pardon me.
We hope to see you in the theater.
Just got in there before they saw me do it. Once they've seen you, that you can't hide in the closets anymore.
Feels like no one's going anywhere here.
And I haven't gotten any closer to Charles. I'm going to try to get to Charles. Sorry, don't mind me. That's a civilian. He's not going to shoot me. If I get out of there fast enough, it's pretty forgiving. Some guy's shooting. Oh, looks like they're on a firing range. Perfectly normal activity for a cult.
It's for hunting purposes.
That's right. Well, this group maintains that the government is out to get them. Shocker. And that they think
even
that,
on a different continent.
We haven't gone far enough, so they're still gonna. I think I'm not gonna.
Here we may struggle, but we all triumph together.
I think they feel like I'm going to turn down. You can adjust the settings in here. I'm going to turn down the loudspeaker just a little bit so we can talk easier. Boop, boop.
But the loudspeaker is always one of the best parts of the game.
It is. When you're playing by yourself, it is. Playing with someone you're talking with, a little less so. I didn't turn it all the way off, which is an option if you feel that way. It's one of those tricky things in game development where you're like, do we give them the option to turn off the best part of the game? I mean, I guess if they want to.
will they understand what's happening without this information?
Right. Well, this way we'll still see the announcements in the subtitles, so we'll still be getting it. They just won't be talking over us as much. And if there's anybody out there thinking of streaming this game, we love streamers. You can also adjust those volumes as much as you want as well.
There's a lot of these details, like the windmill that you just passed. That my first playthrough was like, am I supposed to do something to that? Is there a sabotage I'm supposed to do?
During our crisis, we have made special arrangements.
I like it. It's one of my favorite pieces of art in the game, actually. Just I like how it's up close to the camera, but then also has a little yellow star on there. It's very fitting with because they're, I don't know if we've mentioned, they're hardcore socialists talking about how much they like Castro and stuff.
We keep them in our hearts.
We have no time for
As somebody that just wrote a book on Postal, anything that adopts a near isometric thing and then does something that changes your perspective, I appreciate.
Yeah, so tell us about that. You just wrote that book, huh? Part of the Boss Fight series, right?
I just released the 23rd book in the Boss Fight book series, which if you aren't familiar with, each book is about a different game from a different author. Most books in the series are written by somebody writing about their favorite book or something that means a lot to them emotionally. And I did not wind up in that situation. Me and
Postal's not your favorite game?
No, it is not. And not even really one I'd ever played before, besides once in my childhood. So Nathan Rabin pitched that he wanted to write about Postal, the movie by Uwe Boll. And they were like, that's not enough for a whole book, but Nathan's been my writing hero for a decade. And they were like, would you write the video game portion of this? And so it's the two of us. I write about a very bad game from the 90s that ends with you shooting up a grade school. And then I went to interview the very bad people that made it. And then he interviewed Uwe Boll about adapting that bad game into a very bad movie. And so it deals a lot with toxic masculinity, as one would, and also like everything that comes from parts of this industry. And one of the problems is that we were maybe done with it 2 years ago. And then gun violence and what it was blamed on started coming back under the Trump administration to video games, and they were pulling in Jack Thompson and many of the same people that were in the White House during the Bush years. And you were like, oh, we're letting the same people blame the same thing for this 20 plus years later. I was like, okay, got to keep updating this with what's going on. At some point, my editor had to tell me, like, you can't cover every instance of gun violence because there's just going to keep being more. And I was like, you're right. Time to cut this off.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we just found, I just made it because I was trying to sneak back past that guy. I blew it. I trank dart him. Then I took the opportunity because I dragged out the guy. The guy who was inside the chapel came out to try to stop me too. So I went in and got this note. This is one of the private documents. You won't find these in the rest of the camp, but if you search in the chapels, you find the more private documents that tell you things about here. And they're talking about, this is why Charles, who's actually the guy we're looking for, this is a letter he wrote to Isaac and Rebecca, the pastors, saying, hey, I don't really think someone's going to invade this camp. Do you really think that? That seems crazy. And you can see there's like little cracks in the leadership that Charles is like, that's not what? That's, trying to show that everybody joins these groups for a reason, right? And they're looking for something, or they have reasons they come in, and then as they're there, if they're able to keep their moral compass, they realize, hey, wait a minute, this is not what we signed up for, is it? And Charles is one of those people who's getting suspicious, which is why he'll help us. And I would imagine you found that in your, when you were in your culty research and stuff, you've probably seen that sort of, the people who just stay until the end and the people who figure out they need to get out are like pretty distinct, would you say?
And it's one of the things I appreciated about what you put in this game is that my start into the investigation of cults, like the first thing that I realized when I talked to people that got out was like, well, crap, like most of you are way smarter than I am. It really dispels the idea that like people that join cults are absolutely dumb and fell into a trap. Like it's pretty easy to be like, I feel lost in my life and like I would like to do good, and to have a group of people convince you that this is the way to do so. And then 10 years later, you're like, why did I fall for everything there? That's odd.
they had such a good pitch at the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Good elevator pitch, and then I lost 20 years. So
So this is, part of the context is things from the 70s. This is one of my favorite documents. I haven't found this one in a while. Just shows you some of the headlines they're thinking of, and just reinforcing the tensions that would lead people to think this world's really going crazy. Maybe we should move away and live in the jungle instead.
we moved away from look at all this, like it's
Right,
real
exactly.
bad. Who
Yeah.
wants to be a part of that? Your
Yeah.
worst case scenario is you're in the jungle with a cult, but not in America where you're going to get drafted. So
Right. If you're already expecting death, well, I'll go try this version instead. Or, the other group that a lot of cults attract is people who are having a hard time in society, right? Either they don't fit in,
Right.
or they are poor, or they are harassed by the police for some reason, for, whatever reason, where they happen to live. I've already got an alarm clock, so I don't need that. So, trying to show some of these backstories, show you the reasons why people would join.
right.
I'm sure you've seen that as well.
I mean, the reason that I was recruited was it was 2016. Trump had just won, and also Facebook convinced everyone that pivot to video was an actual thing, a gigantic, like they told, that destroyed journalism across the world. And so it's like, okay, well, if you want to work in journalism, you might have to make some weird sacrifices. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that's what I want to do. What is this Faustian pact that you're looking for me to make?
Right. I would always ask me working on this, well, do you have any experience with cults? And I say, well, I have worked at large software companies.
Yes, which is, I mean, there's plenty of capitalism that's cults. There's, anything in tech and SF is certainly.
I found too that turn this down a little more. There we go. I found that sometimes the sort of leadership that a cult leader brings you makes you want to go do amazing things, right? It's like,
right,
let's make the Macintosh. It's crazy, but I'm going to convince all these people to kill themselves to try to make this because I'm Steve Jobs or whatever, right? and that can lead to something great like the original Macintosh or the iPhone or whatever, right? But at a little bit of cost to your sanity or your free time or that sort of stuff. But people, that's an example of sort of a cult of personality. But you might not call Apple actually a cult, but there's a little bit of that, like the guy who can convince everybody to do this crazy thing.
Right.
That translates over to capitalistic enterprises often, or sometimes, maybe not often. Boy, I am doing... Oh, that's the Trank rifle. So that's fun. I'm not going to pick it up. Well, maybe. No, I'll take it. I'm not really using my pistol in this game, so... The Trank rifle is something you unlock in later playthroughs. Look at those orange darts. Aren't those pretty? And it shoots for a much farther distance than the Trank gun, and the guys stay out a lot longer. So you can Trank a guy with this, he'll stay out like 5 times longer, I think.
As somebody who was frustrated with parts of this, I was always like, why did my Trank gun shot keep them down for 5 seconds? I needed longer.
Well, are you familiar with how Trank guns work in the real world?
How do they work in the real world?
They don't.
Okay.
So if the real world,
well then, good on you.
To Trank an animal, right? To say you're animal control or something, you're trying to take an animal, you have to shoot it many times, and you risk killing it, which is why police don't actually use Trank guns, because there's a chance of, if you have a large enough dose to take someone down, there's a good chance they'll die instead, or they might get horribly enraged, because that's the other reaction to the drug, is they'll actually flip out. And that's not good for de-escalation.
Oh, I feel like I've seen enough of that on live PD to believe that that's true.
There you go. Tasers are a little different, right? But still not the perfect weapon we like to believe they are. So here we put the Trank guns in.
You can discharge an entire taser into somebody and it doesn't affect them at all. So sure.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have great non-lethal weapons these days.
So we bent reality a little bit to put the Trank guns in here because I did want people to have non-lethal options when playing. But I didn't go all the way to... I still don't have a disguise.
And you can do an entirely non-lethal playthrough of the game, right?
Yep. I haven't killed anybody yet, I believe.
Right.
But I'm also low on health. So if I get shot again, I'm going to get captured again. But yeah, a lot of the playthroughs, some of those endings on that menu we looked at before are contingent on you getting through without killing anybody. And not
Sure.
having anyone die after the game's over, too. Because after you get out of the camp with Alex or without Alex or whatever you do, you then hear what happened to the group after you left, and that can be all kinds of different stuff. So
Right.
you try to think about, well, what can I do? Here's another one of these little scenes you can find. So there's somebody up there next to what looks like a whipping post or a pillory or something, and then you've got people praying around them. You've got some cards, and those are the type of scenes that will change from playthrough to playthrough as well.
See, that was what I was going to ask, because like I was in playthroughs that I thought perhaps
I know you've
I'm
never
not the good
believed in
person
what we're
here,
doing.
and then I would see something like that. I was like, but they are definitely sacrificing people. Is that?
Or they're punishing them, and they've collapsed from being punished, and then they're praying for them. And then you're like, well, is that better than the version where they're stoning them or something like that? Because
Right.
you can get the more, even worse things. And I guess it's important to note this group is never like the happy fun club, right? There's always a dark
Right.
edge to what they're talking about. There's always, a few cages here and there, but you'll find, well, I'm
But there
loading
is a
up on these
darkness that
trinkets.
sometimes you're the greater darkness.
Yes, your trick is to how can you do the right thing by your nephew while not becoming worse than the situation he's in? Like, is the cure worse than the disease?
Which was a difficult part of basketball time.
I love this basketball court. I have not been on a basketball court in a long time. The basketball court will also change from playthrough to playthrough. I won't give away what it is, but and the guy who made it put a pad on. This was made by Marty, one of our artists. It was one of the first things he made for the game. And I worked with him years ago at Midway. Makes a lot of sports games, and he said, "Well, I had to put a pad on the what do you call that? That pole they put the basket on. Just in I think they play hard, so they put a pad on there." I'm like, okay, cool. It's those little details.
Safety first here in
That's
this
right.
murder death cult.
Someone who's worked on basketball games before would know about that kind of thing.
Now, how big did the team on this wind up being?
So it was not big. If you look at
Right.
the credits, there's probably 15 people, including voice actors and stuff. But I was the only full-time person.
You built a lot of
the
this
game.
and then brought in people to do.
Yeah, so artists. I didn't make any of the art, except for maybe some of the ugly HUD elements. I'll take the blame for those. But I did most of the gameplay, almost all the gameplay programming, and sort of the level design and the writing. But then I had people making art. I had programmers working on other platforms, and features, techie features that I didn't want to do or didn't have time to do. Really. So yeah, about 15 people, and then we had music and stuff like that as well that I didn't do. So not a huge team, and everyone would sort of come in and out as they had availability in their schedules.
Okay.
They weren't full time on the project. Here's the showers. Not a room I go in enough either. It's a nice little wet look to the floor there. So have you figured out about these buildings?
In which way?
So this is a laundry, and
Right.
if you make it into the laundry, you'll see there's some foot lockers in there I can search. There's a very high likelihood, or there's 100% likelihood you will find at least one disguise in there, sometimes more than that, and sometimes a more advanced disguise. Right now, I don't know if everyone noticed, I put on
You are in disguise already.
Yeah, so you'll notice people's sight cones. The observant viewers will notice that the sight cones are a bit smaller, particularly at the civilians, but the guards as well. And you can find other levels to disguises too. Nothing in there. Oh, that guy almost saw me. So basically, if I decide I want a better disguise, or I want more disguises, because if people spot you, you'll lose your disguise, and then it'll be handy to have another one. So I could trank that guy and that guy and knock her out. So now someone saw them. He's going to wake them up, but I think he will have. Oh, there's nothing in there.
Whoops.
Let's search this one. Aha! So now I can load up on clothing. I'll just have to give up my. I want to go back to that. Give up my. I think I'll give up the alarm wires. So let me search again. Wait, whoa, no, don't wake up. Sorry. Oh, see? She spotted me enough to lose the... See, this is where it all goes wrong. I had this glorious plan. I'm going to stash her in here. So if you pick someone up and stash them in one of the foot lockers, they don't wake up. They're not dead. It doesn't count as a kill in the game. But they will not
Just
come up
having
get
a
up
long
and
nap.
bother you. So let me search this again. So now I'm going to take... Okay, I took that. And I'm going to swap out my alarm wire. So now I have 2 townsperson clothing. I'm going to put one of them on. All right, so see that guy down there is still out because I was using the trank rifle. So he's out for quite a while. I'm going to switch to the trank gun.
There's so much about it that seems like you required a lot of like balancing to figure out how this works. And then to also make it something that like is different every time. Like, how do you balance a game like this?
Yeah, I mean, I would not say it's the most balanced game in the world, to be honest. It's not Street Fighter 2, right, level of balance, but I kind of followed the Bethesda school of balance, which is here's a lot of systems, have a good time, everybody. There's going to be times when you might find an exploit or two, or it might be overly hard on you. I apologize. Like for example, in this playthrough, I have found so many trank darts. I almost never find this many trank darts in a playthrough. So that's the kind of thing too. Is you're playing, what type of gear you find might dictate which play style you're going to try to go for in that game. Because you won't always be able to be as non-lethal as I'm able to be this time. So I was looking for Charles, and I'm right at the top of that circle where he supposedly is. Oh, too many guards in that direction. So are there any cult groups you are following now that you want to clue us in on?
Oh, dear God, no.
Don't want to get their wrath down upon you?
No, I would prefer just enjoying the fictitious versions and movies about older ones.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
if they're dead, it's safer.
I think you know that we also live in a period where there's plenty of older. You know what? QAnon. I spend a lot of time reading QAnon. That seems to be the penultimate. Sure.
Yeah, is there a takeaway from that experience of reading a lot of QAnon?
It's sort of that it evolves a little bit every day, and that there's always more people gaining, and it's just really truly shocking. The administration goes out of their way to not acknowledge them, but still take their support.
But also not disavow them, right?
Exactly. Like there's a baker at Mar-a-Lago who keeps making cakes that say Q on it and posting it on Instagram. And it's like, all right, but like, come on, you all know what's happening here.
Another thing I like to remind people is you can search these billboards for things too. I found their devotional card. So I haven't searched for as many notes. So I will say, as part of Ludonarracon, we're doing some giveaways, and we're giving away some of these cards that we printed up. And these are signed by our voice actors.
Oh, nice.
Signed by John Patrick Lowry, who plays Isaac, and then Ellen McLean, also known as GLaDOS, who plays Rebecca. So we've got signed Isaac and Rebecca cards. If you want to try to get, we're basically going to do a raffle-y sort of thing for those. So if you want to sign up, you can either look in the Steam forums. I'm going to post a link in there to the thing, or you can go to our website, paranoidproductions.com/church, and there'll be a sign-up thing on there well too, where you can answer a couple quick questions and then get your chance to win one of these things. We've got some pins. I'm wearing one of my pins. Here it is. This one says that the light and the darkness. Another one of our pin designs. You can find the pins in the game as well, which is cool, but I haven't found any of those this playthrough. So we got some of those. We've got some swag. These are my our convention brochures from our PAXs that look sort of like a church recruiting thing, and then I'll tell you about the game. So we got some of those too. I'll be happy to sign those, send them to you, whatever. So if anybody wants that, check out the Steam forum or go to paranoidproductions.com/church.
Now tell me about
love to send you some
who you picked and choose from the history of this style of cult to sort of create your world.
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, there's obviously some Jonestown in there, right? in
Right.
that, particularly in like the South America part, the sort of
Right.
architecture of the group, like of the buildings and that sort of thing, feels like what you would build in South America. They're pretty different than them. I mean, there is sort of the socialism mixed with Christianity thing, but they're a lot more Christian than Jim Jones was, which comes from my
Did
background
you watch
being
The
raised
Sacrament
Catholic.
before you got into this?
Not before, but during. I saw the Sack. That's the horror movie by Is that what you're
West.
talking about? Yeah. Yeah, so I saw that. Have you seen that as well, I take it?
Oh yeah, huge fan of that one. In fact, when your game came out, I think I wrote it up at my first site as like, check out this Sacrament thing. Like I was like, Jonestown's kind of here, but like Sacrament had just come out, and I was like, oh, I want to play the Sacrament.
Yeah.
It's not often where an indie movie comes out, and you're like, who's this other team making the indie game version of it? Because I want to play it.
Now that was interesting because that movie is set in modern day, right? And the hook
Right.
is like it's a Vice news crew going down to
Exactly.
investigate. And I felt like for me, the 70s was an integral part of Jonestown, right? It's a group that grew up in that era very specifically, and the type of cult you'd have today, I feel like is a little different than that sort. Are they supposed to be in South America in that movie as well? I can't remember.
Yeah, and go to find a family member and deprogram them and get them
Yeah.
out.
I remember it's shot
so
in
much
Georgia.
more personal than
It's shot
Waco
in Georgia,
could
but
be, because
doesn't.
no one was going to Waco to like find their sister or cousin.
Right. Yeah. Now I did a game years ago called Damage Incorporated, which was originally for the Mac in the late 90s,
Yes.
and then for PC, and that had a cult group in it too, but they were more just total weirdo lunatics, and I think they were in Arkansas somewhere. But that game was all about.
You went out of your way to really give like weight and seriousness to this, which was, I think, why I compared it so quickly to the Sacrament. It's like everyone seems pretty happy. It is extended into Midsummer, where I'm like, okay,
Right.
for these people seem to be totally happy and okay with the situation here, and for most of them, it's a wildly healthy situation. And then there's just a couple of interlopers who are like, fuck this. What's going on? I don't get it. Which is,
so did you like
it's
Midsummer?
so fascinating. Oh, I love it. But like, it also like what you do here a lot too, treads on this sort of like jingoistic America first sort of stuff that like right away you're like, well, everyone here must be bad. And the longer you play the game, you're more like, there are decent human beings here, and like they're maybe smart and finding what they need from this. And am I the baddie? Are we the baddies? Yeah, that's
Another class. This is another set of newspaper headlines you can find that are more about the cult going down to South America part of it. Yeah, are we the baddies exactly? So I'm getting a good run on
I'd love to
here.
talk to you about the music element of this game, because it was one of the first things that you told me about that blew me away. So you went out of your way to make sure that this wasn't just a cult that was led by one guy. You made sure it was led by a couple, which isn't a thing that extends to many places except for maybe the Nexium cult that I've worked with.
Well, and the other interesting one is Heaven's Gate was
absolutely.
And they were a cult that I had always dismissed as being just too weird, or like they were just out there. But then I heard there's a fantastic podcast about Heaven's Gate that I recommend to anyone. Sort of feels like an NPR type of vibe. Really well done, and they just go into the history of how that was led originally by the woman, who then got cancer and died, and then the guy who we're all familiar with from the Heaven's Gate videos, he was actually the replacement, who the show kind of implies got in over his head.
The Heaven's Gate website from 1996 is still up and online, and it is some GeoCities bullshit. It's incredible to still go there.
They left it just well, and there was one of them who didn't go, with them, and was left behind to tell the story of the group, and has been maintaining that website. Or at least keeping it live, right? Maybe not updating it, as you're saying.
Not updating it, but making sure the fees are paid every year. Which Heaven's Gate was, I think, my introduction to it, minus the news at the time, was being a kid in the 90s, and there was an SNL fake ad that just showed all of them, and then it ended on the shots of all their dead bodies wearing the Nike shoes, and it was like, Nike, just do it. And I'm like, that'll never be topped for me in terms of like, that's the darkest SNL can go. Like
Yeah, right.
they won't go there anymore, I assure you.
I'm sure they got some phone calls. So we can tell because this guy has the green circle at his feet. Clue to everybody who's going to play this game that he's one of the friendlies.
Don't go for your guns.
And this guy's played by Arif, who is in the other section of our Ludonaricon stream here that you'll be able to see if you just keep watching.
You're trespassing in our home, but you do what I say.
This set of options by itself, I remember being so surprised by it while playing the game. I was like, all right, so there's a lot I can do here, and I don't know how it pans out.
I just need for you to give me your
So
gun.
most of the characters will talk to you straight off for a bit, and they'll help you if you do certain things for them. But this guy won't talk to you at all until you disarm. Now, I have all my tranq darts. I don't want to lose those. Oh, what a choice. Am I going to lose the rifle too? Oh. But on the other hand, he'll help me find Alex. And without him, I have to go search all those desks, and eventually I'll find a map that has Alex on it. But for the purpose, if I was playing this game normally, I think I would not give up my tranq darts because they are precious to me. But because we're here on the stream and I want to talk to Charles, let's give him our guns.
For a long time, they've been saying people are coming to kill us.
It reminds me very much of the PlayStation 1 era.
Answer me this. Who are you?
No, PlayStation 2 era adaptation of John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, right.
Where you encounter people and you have to try and gain their trust because they think you're the Thing, and so you hand off med kits and guns and ammos to them, and like if they turn out to be the Thing, you really lost them. So to have that sort of trust meter thing is something I wish more games would dabble in. That's why I was so excited to see it here.
Yeah, we don't go all the way to having the meter that they did, but that's a great game, sort of a cult classic, forgotten gem, whatever you want to call it. My friend
it's
Ian
also
Stevens
one of those
games
that
game,
like
so.
they definitely had a sequel prepared for like the next generation of game. If anyone's played the original The Thing game, the problem is that all the people that are in your team that might turn into Thing is pre-scripted, so there's no real question and replayability. But they were like, okay, by the PS3, we'll have the technology to do that. And then the game was canceled. I was like, oh, we were so close to doing it right. Oh, no.
Now we can't make the next one. That's always the thing. It's a classic producer line in video games is save it for the sequel, right? And you're like, yeah, but what if there's no sequel? Because it's not always a sure thing. Everyone thinks there's going to be a sequel, but the chance of it happening is less.
Which brings me to one of my favorite things to talk to you about is that you got to do the Suffering and a sequel.
That's true. That's true. So let me finish talking to Alex. To Charles, rather. This is now. So when you meet these folks, you can ask them things. I can ask them about Isaac.
People promise a lot of things, but Isaac is the first person who did what he said.
So it sounds like Charles here likes Isaac
or hate it.
Doesn't hate him. But then if we ask him about
Rebecca's always saying not to trust our families back home. But I don't care what she says.
I think it's right for people to talk to their families.
I think it's right for people to talk to their families.
So you can, this gives you a sense of, well, maybe he likes Isaac better than Rebecca, but hard to know. Charles is really worried about the discipline.
Shit. What the hell happened to this place?
So he doesn't like that. And then maybe the most important thing you can do with these folks is you show them the postcard.
Alex's family. Is that right? You want to see him? You should see him. What you need is a map to help you find it.
That's right.
I don't know exactly where Alex is.
You need a map.
Marked your map to give you an idea.
Which it could be more specific, perhaps.
Yeah. No, your job is not done when you get
where
to
he
this
might
point.
be.
Yeah. So he's somewhere over there. We're way over here. That's going to be a bit of a journey to get there.
Which I enjoy about this because it feels like some of these puzzle-solving elements blend in with some of the more modern, like Sherlock Holmes games or like Vampire or something, where it's like, I can tell you like a quadrant. You've got to still keep solving the mystery. This wasn't going to resolve here.
If you find another friendly character, they will narrow it down for you quite a bit. But you have no idea where the other friendly characers are, so you kind of have to.
Also, can we agree that your flora and fauna in this game is just incredible?
This is the banana drying shed, a favorite of mine.
The red flowers outside of this and the trees, and the fact that sometimes I don't know what part of the trees I can go into. Yeah, there's a lot of that. The number of times I've run for the tree line and been like, nope, can't get there.
See, that's one thing. I do know which objects you can pass through and which you don't. And that's something you learn the more you play it, but I also know that you can't run through a pig. But if I
I'm
had
sorry,
given
that's
him
the
my
name of the
gun, I could.
stream.
Yeah, I do. You are able to shoot the pigs, which not a lot of people know. But if you aim your gun at the pig and fire, they will die. Make sad little pig deaths. But I gave all
Is
my
there
guns
a
to Charles, so I
result of
can't do
that?
that.
Something that does?
Well, I mean, it isn't anything beyond if someone hears your gun go off, that's usually a bad idea.
Ah,
And they'll come running, but yeah, nothing custom with the pigs. Unlike the Suffering, nice segue back to what you were bringing up before. In the
yes.
Suffering, there were rats, and if you would find a rat in a cage and you shot it, that was actually bad karma. It wasn't called karma in the game, but that's the concept. It was like a sort of a good actions and bad actions you can do that lead to our different endings, and killing the rats for no reason. The ones that are attacking you, you can kill those. Self-defense is allowed, but then there were other non-crazy rats that you could shoot, and then that was frowned upon. But yeah, we did get to do a sequel to that game. I still prefer the first one, I gotta say. But a lot of interesting stuff in the second one. And the second one's a demonstrably better game in a lot of ways, like in terms of mechanics, and it looks better and stuff like that.
I never felt like I fit in.
It went some places, but the first one is also one of those things that I first played and was like, well, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, no, it felt more fresh. In the second one, we were going to make it in a year, and then we ended up getting 18 months. But when you think you're going to make it in a year, you have to make all sorts of decisions in a hurry. That was unfortunate. Better to know you have the year and a half a whole time, though any good producer will say, well, then you'll just take 2 years. But yeah, so we did get to make the second one because at the time we did that with Midway, the company I was at, Surreal Software. Shout out to everyone from Surreal. We did it for Midway, and Midway was sort of on the comeback in the PS2 era because they had
Right.
transitioned from coin-op. They still had Mortal Kombat. They still had their sports stuff. They didn't really have action adventure down,
Right.
or certainly not horror. So we did that, and it did pretty well. And they were like, "Hey, this sold better than we thought. Let's do another one." So we did another one, and that was fun. And I wish we had, in retrospect, it would have been cool because it came out right before the Xbox 360 did. And if we had waited another 6 months, we could have shipped it as a 360 title, I believe. And then we could have made a really
the story where you're talking about like we just like we're given a pass on crunch.
We're given a pass on crunch?
Yeah, back before that was possible. Oh, you went from like 1 year to 16 months. It's like, I don't know. Take a little more time. It's fine. Whatever.
No, that still happens, but less so. Now, I mean, we were crunching too, mind you. It was not a good scene. Not something to brag about, but it was the reality of that situation, unfortunately. Ooh, I need that. No, I don't.
I feel so bad about so many games right now, but definitely like the Last of Us for almost assuredly. Definitely were in crunch and then got delayed last second, and it's like, you must have really put in like months there, and then it's like,
well, it got delayed. In that case,
it.
I think it's just because they can't like print the collector's editions and all of those sorts of things. They can't get those into stores because the GameStops are shut down.
My theory was that it's ready to go, but like no one could do day one patches on stuff.
Right.
So like you'd have a game that might be Fallout 76 broken and not be able to, fix it from home.
Yeah. Some teams still shipping stuff though. Particularly indie developers, they were already working at home, so it's less of an issue. But yeah, those big studio projects. Have there been other big games that got delayed like that?
There are a number, and it keeps coming in like once a week. And it's like I'm sure that indies you can work at home. Some of these big boys, like I'm sure no one has the processing power to handle something like this.
And all the source
on their home laptop.
Dependent on
exactly.
In the office. It's all the security and all of that stuff. So I don't want to go this way. That's the other thing about the game. Piece of advice I give to people is if somewhere looks like a bad situation, just don't go that way because it's an open map. So, pick another path. So I was trying to go through that middle passage there through to the church. I was going to point at the screen as if that helps anybody. But so I think I'm not going to go that way. But I really want to get over there to try to see if we can find Alex before our time is up. Oh, looks like we've been going about an hour already. Yeah, so I guess the when we originally talked, Nexium was the thing, and
Right.
you mentioned them earlier, right? And so that's just done, basically, right? Is that guy still in jail? Is that what happened there?
He will be in jail for a very long time,
All right.
and it's kind of nice that it wound up that it's because everyone that he trusted turned on him at the last second. But I don't know. What happens to them next is up in the air.
Right. But that was kind of a case where it seems like it collapsed, basically, once he was taken out of the picture.
Yeah, it was the sort of thing that so many of them were really stuck in jail, and they were like, "We'll die before we turn against him." And then you get a threat of 60 years in jail, and you're like, "I will turn against him so hard tomorrow."
Right. As long as you promise I don't have to see him again after that. Yeah, you wrote a great story about them. It's the knife and something. What was that called? Do you remember?
Oh, the Knife of Aristotle.
Right, The Knife of Aristotle. A good read if you want to go read about that group. And that was before they became super well known. That was interesting. And I remember reading that from you before. Yeah.
You make all the same sounds I make while playing your game, which makes me feel so much better about your game.
That's right. There's no beauty in terror.
I think you've made a career out of beauty and terror. Maybe let's.
It's all relative, I guess. Okay, since I had the disguise on, I was able to dash by that person. Another thing for observant players, this cemetery will change from playthrough to playthrough. If you're playing it again and you want to see how the cult is different, come look at the cemetery. Things will be a little different. So, and those things are pretty subtle. I tried to get a lot of subtle stuff in there. I sometimes think I bias too hard on the subtle things, the subtle changes to the group, because it's. Oh, look! So I've been searching the desk and I got lucky. That tells me exactly where Alex is.
That was smaller.
So yeah, now I have no excuse not to find him, other than getting shot.
I'm gonna grab a drink real fast and be right back.
All right. Brock will return shortly, wearing out his larynx. I hope it's not a COVID, because he needs a drink. So I've got, see this bridge over here, I can get across. And so that guy's turning, I think. Don't want to, oh, there he goes. Okay. Oh, and this is my favorite thing. I like to do this in every playthrough. Yeah. All right, here we go. I can go up here, and I'm going to drag this guy. I'm going to use the rock throwing. You can aim the rocks now. That's something we put in post-release. You can hold down the rock button, which is on the shoulder, or the R button if you're playing on keyboard, and you can then aim the rock exactly where you want it to go. I'm just going to pull him over there, and I can also turn on this radio. I just love that radio. It plays a little tune. If he were a little bit closer, he would have been attracted to the radio sound. But okay, sorry, I'm just going through here. So once they go to that yellow state, they're going to pursue you, but they're not going to start shooting yet. It's a subtlety as you figure out how those react. And, I got trapped in the chicken coop once this game already. So we're looking for Alex. We've been down here before, going through the banana shack. And I don't know if people have noticed, as I've been playing, the game gets darker and darker as it goes towards nighttime. You basically run out of time before it can become full night. Okay, he's not in that cabin. Let's listen to Rebecca for a minute. Oh. I wish I had my trank darts.
Hey!
I lost my disguise. That's bad. Bad. Excuse me. I'm just gonna run in here. Oh, he's chasing me still. Run by the kiln. Okay. I think I'm safe. Phew. So I know sometimes, hey, I found the pins. So these are some of the pins you can find in the game. Again, if you want to get some pins for yourself, if you've come to any of our, when we showed the game at PAX, things like that, you could have got them. If you are watching this during Ludonarracon for this weekend, go to the Church in the Darkness website, paranoidproductions.com/church. and you might win some of these pins. I'll send you in the mail, just like you're going to a real convention. There's 5 different pin types that we made. I just love how the 1970s cult pins look. Not cult pins, but sort of revolutionary groups and protesters and that sort of thing would make up these pins. We just wanted to get something, again, that evoked that time period nicely and looked like, this type of group would have made those pins and would have them on hand. Oh. So I think I have... Is he still connected? I'm going to go over here. All right. I'm going to put that on. Now I'm disguised again.
Now, regarding like the 70s aesthetic, was it something that you were like, I just know that the 70s was a place where this sort of cult thing happened, or do you have a real draw to a 70s aesthetic?
What?
That is an interesting question. I've just found Alex while you were gone. I did.
Vic,
Oh, there goes a bird.
Is that you?
You're so
get
easily
in?
distracted by the birds. I
How'd
know
you
how
find
much you
me?
love them now.
All the animals, the chickens. When I run by and hear the
Vic?
chickens, I love that too.
Vic, those alarms were because of you?
So it
You've
auto
scared
zooms you in,
people.
but somebody's walking. Why
They're
are you walking
freaking
through
out.
here? Don't.
You need to
hey,
go.
you.
It's
Oh,
not
I don't have a
safe for
gun.
you here.
If I had a gun, I could use the stick-up mechanic. But I can
The
subdue
things they've
her.
said about why we are down
Sorry,
here.
I just killed her. I meant to
We
knock
have to
her out.
change society,
But
sure,
I'm gonna.
okay?
Oh, that guy saw me.
There's only so much we
he
can
saw
do.
her.
People
Okay, I can
break.
use this to my advantage.
Rebecca doesn't know the
Go
limit.
up here.
I don't know
is the
what's
red
going
guy gonna
on with
see me?
Isaac
Yeah,
and
he
Rebecca.
saw me.
Oh, absolutely.
I know
yes.
where they are. I marked them on your map.
I just got out of
You
there.
talk to them.
So now the game thinks I have abandoned Alex. It's telling me, oh, well, you talked to Alex, you can leave now. Because it's up to the player if they want to try to rescue Alex or not. And he may, I still feel like I need to go back and hear his story before we can consider this stream done. But you were asking me about the 70s aesthetic. Yeah, I thought it
Right.
was, I like period pieces in general.
Okay.
So I feel like it's, I don't know, maybe
I would
I'm
consider
lazy.
the sufferings to be very 90s influenced. Does that count like late 80s?
The sufferings are, came out early 2000s, and the prison sort of is deliberately like a prison out of time or something. It has like the old rotary phone with the thing you put up to your ear. It doesn't have an easy handset on. Some of them do, some of them don't. It has other
I think more
gadgets that are
about your
obviously
main character who is African American and clearly was not responsible for his crime in a very 90s way.
That's also a very 70s thing, though, I would say.
I guess, you know what? Long periods of that, and yeah, sure.
Yeah, but
Shouldn't have said that. I didn't think about it.
but yeah, no, he yeah, that was one of the earliest ideas we had with the game, was the guy who's in but who isn't guilty, or maybe he is guilty depending on how you play the game. Because you could, in certain versions of the game where you played more evil, it would turn out you were guilty after all.
Right.
But yeah, he,
never mind. It's not that he was African American. It was a lot of the dialogue lines he had that I was like, this feels very Blade 1996. Like
now in the
sort of
first game,
action
he
hero.
doesn't talk. He doesn't talk at all in the first game. He has a few lines in the second game, and then the buddy he's with, Miles, who's your sort of best friend in the second game, who comes to a sad end somewhere in the middle. He had a lot of those Blade-ish lines, I would say.
Fair enough. Okay.
And that guy is played by Arif Eskinchen, who is on the other stream, who's also in this game. So it's all connected. That's right.
You keep your family close, like a
all
cult.
roads lead back. Well, it was another thing with this game was I'd worked with John Patrick Lowry, the cult leader. He was in both Suffering games as well. And then Rafida Keys, who plays the woman, Stella, and the characters you meet, she's Carmen from the Suffering game. So it's 3 out of 4 actors were in the Suffering. And I just like working with actors I've worked with before. Because like when you know what they're good at, you can sort of write it
from
them.
earlier to discuss like how incredible the music is here and where it originated from, which is my favorite part of the story.
So which part of the music are you asking about?
Oh, how a couple came together and almost without prompting wrote these songs that like aren't about being a cult, but really would have like fucking charted in the 70s. Like they really. It's what blew me away when I first played it. It was like we talked about what their music would be, and I was like, I thought it was going to be like Jesus loves in the blood of the lamb or something, and it's actually wildly like supportive and interesting. And I was just like,
You're right.
okay,
There's the
like
song that sounds like a traffic song, and the song that sounds
yes.
like that kind of thing. Yeah, and that was really just because John, who's plays the cult leader, wrote all of those songs as well, lyrics and music, and they sing them together as duets sometimes, or sometimes as solo pieces. But he was obviously alive in that period. He's a little bit of an older gentleman. And he was in a hippie commune in the 70s himself, so he knew that period well. And he
Oh, I
just wanted
had
to
no
vary
idea.
it
Oh,
up.
that answers all of my questions.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
He
Oh,
wanted to vary it up, so he said, "Well, I don't want to write 8 of the same song." So he would pick different styles that would fit in that period and would fit something they could record in a shack in the jungle. And that's why they feel so good. And I remember when I first said, "Hey, John, do you want to try writing these songs?" I thought maybe he'd write the music and I would do the lyrics or something like that. And then he just sent me a song, totally done, and I was like, "We're good. I don't need to write this because you got it
isn't it
down."
nice when people make your job easy
Yeah.
and you aren't surprising it?
Particularly as an indie developer, you need to figure out what can I possibly have someone else do. So, all right, so we found Alex here. So he did a little bit of talking, and we were distracted. He's basically given me a map where he's marked where Isaac and Rebecca are because he's not sure what's going on here. He's a little like, well, I don't know if Isaac and Rebecca are bad. Why don't you go talk to them?
There's
summary.
problems here, but can we fix this town? I don't know.
And that's from the radio, that other half of the line we're hearing. So, and I can ask
Rebecca
him just
told
like
us
the other
about
people.
the lie of capitalism.
The lie
I
of
still believe
capitalism.
that in her, but there's something dark about power too.
So he's a little worried about her.
I read
what
that
about
book.
Isaac?
I know why the caged bird sings. Isaac told
So
me
in
to.
these dialogue
And then he
options,
said it
how
was
varied
noble
do the
to sing in the
responses
cage,
become?
but
Like when you're
better
talking to
cast
him,
the
is this
cage
like a
aside.
50-50,
That's
this
why
is
we
going to pan
came.
out, or do all 4 options and everything that stems from it like go in different places?
In this one, they go in different places. For Alex, definitely. He's the one who changes the most of all the characters. Some of the other
Okay.
characters, you'll hear some of the lines will be the same. Other ones will change depending on the playthrough. But Alex has the most complicated dialogue script in terms of logic. If you did this thing, he'll say this. And if you did that thing, he'll say this. So he has a lot of permutations you can hear. Obviously, you have to survive in the game up to this point to hear all the different ones. But he'll
This
say
is one
different
of the
things
big
each
questions
time.
I had for you about the game, is that I've played through a number of times, and then I'm like, I got the same ending. I made some different choices places. Where do those things stem?
Right. Well, there's, the core choice is, do I have Alex come out with me, right? So I can say,
You know
it
when
sounded
you've
like,
thought on something a long time and you still don't know what to do? Yeah, that's where
so
I'm
he's
at.
still conflicted about whether to go. So basically, he's leaving the choice in my hands. I'm going to have him
we gotta
follow
go.
me. Of course, now I have to get out of here without getting
Wow.
there we go. Turns out I am decent at this game sometimes. But remember, he also marked off where Isaac and why are they not on there? He marked it before.
Where'd she go?
Ooh, that's a bug. I'm sorry, everybody.
Or is that a result of a
Oh, you know
dialogue
what
choice?
happened? Isaac has died. Look at the subtitle. Isaac has passed away. It was peaceful. He was resting and then he was gone.
It's hard for me to turn my back on
Oh my God.
on all these people.
I love
They
that
need
this
a
can be a
chance too.
surprise to you too. That's one of the things I love so much about this game.
Well, I know it was in there. Basically, if you take a long time getting to Alex, eventually she's calling everybody to the church. And so stuff is happening. We're not hearing Isaac anymore because, as she said, oh, there's Alex. He went the other way. Well, at least he's still cut up. We will pay him. So you haven't seen this version, I'm guessing, Brock.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. So it sounds like Rebecca is in charge and Isaac has died. Or something.
America hates being called out,
I
America can't
love
stand
the
truth.
game you made so much. I've never played the game the same way, and it's so narratively driven, and I don't understand how you did it.
I look back on it and don't know how I did it either. because there's a lot in it. It took a while to get it all together.
Is it truly that you just built a lot of stuff in and you're like, I don't remember programming that part?
No, it was done, like all the parts were done, and then it was the okay, let's get the other, like what player does this, what player does
These
that.
people are the
There was a
family
lot of
I
going back
made.
and
What's
sort
gonna
of
happen
trying to
to my
figure out,
family, Vic?
oh wait, in this scenario, if the player does this in this order, we have to support that. So that was easily 6 months of development, figuring out all those scenarios. So it was all planned out, and then it was sort of replanned as it was tightened up, shall we say.
We have worked so hard.
So I don't want to give too much away for the people watching the game. So I think we're going to end it here, probably. We've been going for a while,
This has
so
been
I'm not
great.
going to show you what happens at the church. You'll have to play the game yourself to find out. But it is something, you've got to be paying attention when you hear things on the PA system, like Rebecca freaking out about Isaac. You could go to the church right now and see what
Isaac
she's
and
doing
Rebecca,
there. Maybe
nothing
try to
they do
stop
surprise
her.
me.
Maybe you get
My
there too
friends
late to
deserve
stop
better.
her. And I don't
Maybe you
want to
don't
give
care
away.
to stop her.
There's stuff in there. There's stuff in there to see. So we'll leave it there for now. Let's assume I'm able to get Alex out, so that's nice.
It is something that, like, especially in the game review world, that I've learned over the last few years, which is that the term replayability sucks ass. Never judge anything by that. But like, this game has had such excellent replayability, which is why I've bought it on so many different platforms. Because, like, sure, let's see where this one goes. I never know, and I'm glad to know that you don't either sometimes, which is very exciting to me.
All right. Bye, Rebecca. Don't do anything terrible to everybody. And then obviously if I continued, that would have unlocked another thing. And the cool thing you can do on here that I like to tell everyone about is you can go to the different endings and you can replay the song you got on that ending. Because every time you get one of these different endings, that's where you get the songs you were talking about, Brock. You hear some of them during the game, but then you
I
get
had
different
no
endings
idea.
with each thing.
Oh
So if
my
I go
God.
back here, I can hit there, and it's replaying the song I got on this ending. Where in this ending, Isaac and Rebecca just wanted to be left alone, and you left Alex to live with them. It tries to not give you too much details about it, but enough that you can remember. And this is a classic. This is a cover, right? This isn't the original. It's Where We'll Never Grow Old. Shall We Gather at the River? Another classic. Ellen does a great a cappella of that.
Where bright angel feet have trod.
So anyway, you get the idea of it's that mix of the sort of spiritual songs with the traffic song and all of that stuff. So thanks a lot for coming on the stream, Brock. This has been great fun talking cults and talking
Thank
the
you for
game with
having me.
you.
This is always such a delight.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to tell people to check out? Obviously, you've got the Portal book that just came out. People should go look at. Where can people
The
find
postal
you?
book. Oh my
Postal
God, I
book,
wish it was
sorry.
a Portal book. I would
Have they
had
done a
such
Portal
nice
book
things
yet?
to say.
Have they done a book on Portal? They might have already. But
They
you
have
did not
not,
get to
but
write it.
I would love that. If they're actually, if you wanted to take part in Boss Fight Books, the rest of the month where you've got a little time here is pitch season, which they do once every 2 years. You can write up an email pitch and just sort of include like a sample chapter. They have the rules on their website. If you are somebody that is pitching, reach out to me over Twitter or Facebook. I am happy to read anyone's stuff because, oh my God, everyone that sends me something, I'm like, hey, shit, I want to read this book so badly. And here's a couple of notes to send in. I don't run it, but like, boy, I'd be happy to help people, especially anyone that is from a diverse background, because, oh goodness, we've had a lot from straight white guys like me, and we can do better.
So that's a good series. Where can people find you online or on Twitter? Do you have a handle or a thing?
I am at Brock Wilbur on Twitter and most other places, brockwilbur.com. I am the editor-in-chief of The Pitch in Kansas City. Come read our work. That's me. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's been a pleasure, and thanks everybody for watching out there in Steamland, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, but if you're watching it during Ludonarracon on Steam, you can pick up the Church in Darkness on sale for the show. Brock endorses that as a good decision.
Play the game.
And you can also get yourself some swag. If you go to the Steam forums, I will post a link where you can go fill out a thing to enter to win some of our goodies, like the John and Ellen signed collector's cards or some of our brochures that are cool. So it's just like going to a convention, except from the comfort of your own home, and maybe the postman will deliver you something after the show. That would be cool. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy what you played here today, what you've seen us playing here today, rather. And if you have any questions, you can find me on social media at Richard Rouse III on Twitter, or on the Steam forums. I'm on there all the time if you have questions when you play.
Actually, you know what? If you wind up watching this and you wind up buying a copy of The Church in the Darkness, send me a copy of your receipt to Brock at thepitchkc.com. I'll send you an ebook of my poster book.
All right.
This seems like two things that match well together. You deserve to have both.
All right. And he has sent me a copy of his book. I have not had time to read it yet, but I read like a little bit of the introductory chapter, and I said, okay, this is going to be good. So I never played the original Postal, so this will be close enough.
Until the assignment. So yay!
All right, this has been lovely. Thanks everybody for coming, and enjoy the rest of Ludonarracon. A lot of good games out there, or pick up The Church in the Darkness on our lovely sale. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye bye.